I'd like to call the meeting to order and begin with the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty, justice for all. Have a call on the roll, please.
Councilperson Thacker.
Here.
Councilperson Weger.
Here.
Councilperson Thies.
Here.
Councilperson Norris.
Here.
Councilperson Wilson.
Here.
Councilperson Thompson.
Here.
Councilperson Loudermilk.
Here. Thank you. Moving on, public comment. Open this time for public comments. Ask that comments be limited to the items on tonight's agenda. With that, I would ask those who would like to make public comment to please approach the podium and state your name for the record. Appears there's no one who wishes to make public comment tonight. Moving on, communications from elected officials, other officials, or agencies of the county. Does anyone like to speak at this time? It appears there is not.
Council President Loudermilk, is this where I should address my part?
We're going to move it down.
More move down?
Yeah,
Okay,
we'll move it
got
down.
it. Thank you.
Moving on, first reading by summary reference of proposed ordinances and resolutions. ROC 2022-02, additional appropriation 2022-02, Health Department. It's a vehicle. ROC 2022-04, additional appropriation 2022-03, drug-free community, appropriation into operating expenses. ROC 2022-06, additional appropriation 2022-05, contractual services, courts. ROC 2022-05, additional appropriation 2022-04, salary ordinance 2022-01, delete 4 part-time positions, add 2 full-time positions, clerk's office. ROC 2022-07, additional appropriation 2022-06, salary ordinance 2022-02, add position, juvenile court, CASA. ROC 2022-08, additional appropriation 2022-07, salary ordinance 2022-03, add position, GAL. ROC 2022-09, additional appropriation 2022-08, salary ordinances 2022-04 through 2022-10, salary adjustments for the jail. And then first reading for ROC 2022-10, resolution 2022-03. That is regarding the tax abatements. With that, we'll move on to reports from committees. Are there any reports from committees? There are none. Resolutions and ordinances other than appropriations. Vigo County tax abatement scoring guidelines. Councilwoman Thies, would you like to speak on that?
Sure. Something that, as we've gone through tax abatements and when I was running for office, one of the things I looked at was the system that we went through the process. And having an education background, I came up with the idea of rubrics. The city had been using a kind of a checklist system and application process, and I was hoping that we could look at something like that as well. I gathered support from people to look into it. It really came about through some of the earlier work and research of Councilwoman Lisa Spence, who had served previously and had worked with Steve Witt and the Terre Haute Economic Development Commission. Martha Crossan on the City Council had been involved in some of the initial works. Calissa had served it Miller had served in almost all the meetings, and other members had attended some of the meetings as well. So from gathering the information that had been started in the process, and again, meeting with Councilwoman Martha Crossan from the city, and then again, connecting with Steve Witt and Calissa, we were able to look at the forms, kind of took a look at what the city was using, added some personal things that would be beneficial for the county in gathering information for the abatement process, updated some of the figures through work. Steve Witt had reached out to Work One to get some of the information on salaries and ranges of different things as well. And I think we've put together a really good document, gathered some feedback along the way, have had people have eyes on it. Calissa has also written some notes that we can make a few adjustments to, but at this time, I would really like to consider moving forward with using this. Hopefully, we'll have some, future development and economic opportunities to do this. But we've really put together a plan. It really updated the form, and I'm really proud of what we've done. And again, I have to really thank Calissa on taking my ideas and making it a whole lot prettier than what I could have done. But I think it's a very friendly form. I think it will help businesses when they present the information to us as well, because it shows what we hopefully want to see from them, but also how to gather information from them. It's just more clear in the process, and I think that we're more clear with it. It'll make things flow more smoothly, and we can have a system. I'm pleased with what we've given, the abatements I've been a part of, but I think this will just clarify everything for all parties involved. So that's where we're at. I would like to move that we are able to vote on it at the next meeting. Also understanding that in looking at things, we may consider in the future adjusting some of the scoring sheets, comparing we're going to have some flexibility on it because we could have some really big businesses coming along, but we could also have some smaller local businesses that want to grow in the county as well. And I know you guys have seen kind of several of the rough drafts over the last couple months, really, but I think we're really, really close, and this is looking pretty good of what we like. The hope is eventually we'd like to get it where it's online too. We'd have to see if it would work, but if not, it's all done through Excel, so we have some drop-down opportunities as well to make it easier for those applying. And I just think it looks really good for the county as well. It's a nice, crisp, clean, updated form. Any questions?
Mr. President,
Councilwoman Wager?
how will this mesh with what the city is putting together? Could city council person Loudermilk answer that? We have information.
At this point, there's not been any discussion to update ours yet.
So we took a look at what they had, so what the city has, and with the hope that as we worked on something, maybe when they go to update theirs, they might look at something similar. But if that's on them. I wanted to get something going with the county specifically. So. But I think you'll see it's got some similarities to it to make it kind of easier to follow along. Those.
Councilwoman Wilson?
I just want to commend you on this and everybody else involved. You've done a lot of work here, and I really appreciate it. I'm sure.
Well, that was the method behind it. She took the ideas and made it look good. So, but
Don't discount what you've done.
the
Don't
work,
do that.
the work had started, but I appreciate that. Some initial ideas, and again, giving some credit to the city form that they've been using as well, because we took some of the pieces of it and just expanded on it. So, not to plagiarize or anything like that. But yeah,
Awesome.
no, I think there's some potential for it. Thank you.
Any additional questions or comments from council? Thank you, Marie. I know you spent a lot of time on this, and I know it's been something you've been focused on for months, so I appreciate your efforts and your hard work.
I appreciate you guys considering it.
Moving on, ordinances relating to appropriations. First up, additional appropriation 2022-02, ROC 2022-03, Health Department.
Good evening, Joni Wise, Administrator with the Vigo County Health Department.
Mike Graylis, Infection Control Supervisor.
We have asked for an additional appropriation to purchase a vehicle out of the vaccine administration funds that we receive from the Health and Human Services. It's the money that's in its own separate line item that goes into the general health fund, and we're looking at ways that we can, this is out of the settlement that we received from July of last year, January 1, 2021 till June the 30th. And that was the $133,203.57. Then we should be receiving here within a week, the July 1 to December 31st settlement.
Any questions from council? Councilman Norris?
Joni, real quick question. How does that pricing on that Grand Cherokee Laredo compare to the Durangos that we've seen so many of the other entities buying? I don't remember off the top of my head, so.
Michael Tom with Vigo Dodge couldn't give me a price on a Durango. It's not on a government bid this year.
Okay, all right.
So
I
we-
know we just got one for the community corrections or for the youth, juvenile center.
Yeah, it wasn't on government bid this year.
Okay, all right. That's all I have.
Councilman Thompson?
This, were there guidelines on how you can spend that money?
No,
Or
not
were there any
really.
issues?
No, that's why I included the letter from Dr. Box that went out to all fiscal making bodies in Indiana also, that, to not hire people out of it, nothing that's long-term, try to look at big-time purchases, one-time purchases. That's what is encouraged. We were encouraged also to, continue doing COVID vaccinations and COVID relief stuff, which we're doing. We have a grant to do all the outreach programs for the vaccines and the homebound. And then we're still using some of it for our response in the office. But, and as far as children's immunizations, we have our immunization grant, so it's not like we need to use the funds for that. So it's looking at what can we get the best bang for our buck that would help our department out in the long run. For any of you that haven't been to our compound, which is where we keep our fleet of vehicles, it's a wonder to look at, especially how well they're maintained. The regular maintenance that our compound guys do. When somebody goes to leave in a vehicle for a day, that vehicle's signed out with the mileage, the same as when they bring it back in. And that way Mike can see if, looking at the gasoline bills, if they're working efficiently and if there needs to be something that's done. So there's a lot of oversight that goes into preserving those vehicles. And as you can see right now, the one that we take to conferences and whatnot is a 2013 Crown Vic that its speedometer quit working, odometer, years ago. No, it's a 1994 Crown Vic. I'm sorry, it was in 2013 the odometer stopped. That all the vehicles are extremely well maintained, and they're maintained by the Vector Controls Division staff, who also help out and do our maintenance staff's vehicles also.
I have nothing further.
Any additional questions from council? Councilwoman Thies?
So as far as, I'm trying to look, is this gonna be more general purpose then, or is it gonna be anything specific? I know you mentioned vector
General
control.
purpose.
It'll be okay, because I couldn't remember, did we get some this last summer,
Yes,
vehicles?
yes, ma'am, we
Okay,
did.
but those were for specific
Yes,
areas,
yes.
okay. That's what I was, okay.
Each specific automobile is numbered, and then that number is assigned that vehicle to a particular staff person.
Okay. Thank you.
Councilman Thacker?
Yes,
I was wondering, could you tell us what some of the other vehicles that might have been on that list, authorized list to choose from? I'm not familiar with the list myself.
I looked at the Chevy, I can't remember what the name of it is. But I looked through Chevy, I asked Michael Tom, because we did purchase a truck through Michael Tom.
Right.
He always gives us a good deal. Tried to buy locally here. The Jeep was the best that I could do.
Okay, thank you.
I would have liked to have a Durango, but Michael Tom told me the Durango wasn't available on the government bid, so.
I wanted an extended cab Suburban. He told me that was out of the question.
Thank you.
Any additional comments or questions from council? Thank you. Appreciate it. Next, we have additional appropriation 2022-03, ROC 2022-04, drug-free community.
Good evening. This is the yearly appropriation for our drug-free communities fund. These are drug interdiction fees that the courts collect, so they're not taxpayer dollars. They're when somebody does something they shouldn't have done and they're now before the court, they pay a fee for drugs and alcohol. And then what happens is that those monies go to the county level at 75%, and then the state takes 25%. Of that 75%, drug for the local coordinating council or drug-free Vigo County then grants out per state statute through the Criminal Justice Institute to prevention, treatment, and law enforcement agencies. And so our collection is not quite $83,000. We probably collected about 45 to 50,000. I think it was about 50,000 this last year, but some of that's rollover dollars. As with COVID, we had limited abilities to do some programming and some things like that. So the fund is built up a little bit, but.
Questions from council? Man, you're gonna get off pretty easy here.
I know, I can.
All right. Thank you.
You can breathe now.
Appreciate it. Now have additional appropriation 2022-05, ROC 2022-06, courts.
Good evening. Thank you for having me. Lakshmi Reddy, Judge of Vigo Superior Court 2. I don't think Brandon needs an introduction. So I think between Brandon and I, we've all spoken to you. I also have a little more support here. I've got Caleb Fleshner, an attorney here in town who also pro tem judges in my court quite a bit, and Blake Reed, who is an attorney who does a lot of family law in town. I brought them here because in case you have questions, I think that they could attest to why these services are needed. So Brandon and I have spoken to each of you individually as to the fact that just today we submitted a pretty heavy grant application to the Division of Mental Health and Addictions, asking for a little over $300,000 for a 2.5-year project. It's been in my mind for a couple of years, but Brandon has put it to paper. Essentially, it is a holistic approach to help families, to strengthen them, to help children become emotionally healthy. You know, pre-COVID, I could see a lot of problems where the court system wasn't functioning as well as it could for children. And COVID has just exacerbated the problem, and families are in crisis, and they are not getting the help they need, and they can't get it quick enough. And courts aren't functioned to be able to do that. And the best way to do it is with a social worker. It's not a new concept. I've been researching this for years, and the concept has been around probably for 3 decades. It's not being implemented because no one wants to put the money into it. And we need to. You know, and I've said it to a lot of people, you know, we've complained about how big our jail is, and I have said it, in a decade, I'm sorry, but that jail isn't going to be big enough if we don't start investing in our children. It won't. I hate to be the naysayer and I hate to sound jaded, but we have to invest in our children because they are struggling, and I think we all know it, and they need help early. And it's the courts and the schools that know very early which kids are struggling, and we have to intervene. We're not asking for a lot early, but I think I've told you all, this is a small amount now, but I'm coming back to ask for more. And it's for kids. It's to get them into services, and it's to get parents into services. So right now, we're asking for $25,000 so that we can start the process of hiring a social worker. Casey has, another $20,000 set aside in reserves to start that process. We're optimistic that we can get the grant because it's a very innovative project. We may not. And if we don't, we're still going forward with the project because we both believe in it, and we'll fundraise to do it, and we'll come back to the county council because it's a community problem. But, Brandon, you have anything else you want to add?
Only that in working with kids and families for the last 20 years, we've seen an increase in mental health issues with the children that we're serving. And I would say, echo that COVID surely didn't help with some of those issues that we have. The unique thing with this is that a lot of times when we're working with families, they have roadblocks or speed bumps sometimes, or something happened where they just didn't get the services that they're needing. And having a social worker that could be their cheerleader, their case manager, and helping them walk through some of the processes will really aid in their ability to get back on their feet, to create some positive youth development. We're really focused on some family-centered approach, like Judge Reddy said, holistic approaches with the kids here. And the idea is that, initially the Community Foundation is also, if we are awarded this funding, the Community Foundation has agreed to chip in $25,000. They were wanting local matches. Unfortunately, the timing just didn't work out at a county level on some of that stuff. But the idea, honestly, is pretty simplistic, but I think the impact will be profound. Putting one social worker at first and then another social worker, so two social workers eventually, tied to Division II court, and helping provide those wraparound services, working with local counseling services, creating things for life skills counseling, group therapy, and a whole range of simple things as far as like how to get onto Medicaid or get food stamps or things like that sometimes, I'll tell you, I have a master's degree and work in this area, and sometimes when I'm trying to navigate some of these state and these federal government processes, I don't see how some of our families even do it sometimes. So that's really the point behind this. And in looking at it, how can we be as conservative with dollars that we can still get the job done without actually creating this big program? It is over $300,000, but that's over 2 years, 2.5 years actually. So it would be July 1 if awarded, and when I say just submitted 30 minutes, maybe 45 minutes ago, I was, please go through, it's 5 o'clock. Starting July 1, 2022, going through December 31st, 2024. And then beyond that, as with anything else, there's no guarantees, but that would give us then time to work out a sustainability plan between local funding with possibly with the county council to, Chances does a pretty good job fundraising. That would play into it as well as continuing writing grants for some of these services and counseling services. So.
And it's also going to be evidence-based. I mean, we have talked about collecting data so that when we come back, we're going to have data to show you as to how effective it is, who's going through services, how much services are they completing, surveys to show how, have these children improved? Are their grades better? Are they behaving better? So we're not going to just come back and say, we want money. We're going to show you data as to how have they improved.
Questions for council? Councilwoman Wilson.
I'm glad you brought up about the supporting data. Is anyone else that you know of doing anything similar that might have some of that supporting data? Or is this just a brand new idea that you've customized for this?
The concept has been around, but again, no one wants to put the money into it. And I think that's the problem.
I think I appreciate the fact that you're going to be keeping track and be able to provide that in the future too. That's good.
In connection with some of this, we'll be able to work with Some of the programming that we've outlined in this, so for example, Strengthening Families is based out of the Iowa State University, which is an evidence-based program, been around for many years, where it works as a family unit. It's honestly, one aspect of that program in itself is the simplicity of having dinner together. The majority of Americans don't even have dinner together. And what happened at the dinner table? It's conversing with your kids about, how did your day go? What are you doing this weekend? How's school going? How are your grades doing? It does more than just talk about having dinner. I'm just saying that's one aspect of it. And it is an evidence base that has pre and post tests. So a lot of the work that we'll be doing will be based on pre and post tests that we'll be able to ascertain how well the children have done. And then through, and it'll be a mixture of qualitative and quantitative data too, that we'll come back to doing some roundtable discussions with kids to find out what's going on and how are these classes and everything progressing. So.
If you could maybe something you just said bounced an idea to me. If you could incorporate the I Love You Foundation, that huge cross at whatever it is, 70 and 57, their whole process is they want people to, every time your child walks through the door, in or out, you tell them that you love them. And that there's studies that they've done on the impact that just that by itself has made on children.
Absolutely. With the strengthening, absolutely, we would work with them as well on anything with this. But the strengthening families, going back to the same thing, it's all about setting love and limits, and understanding that children are inherently designed. I've got a 17-year-old, trust me, designed to push that envelope to the very end and just tiptoe along. And it's our job as caregivers to help guide them and lead them and show them where those limits are while still showing love. Right. And that's where we're lacking sometimes. And honestly, when you look at some of the ACEs, which is the adverse childhood experiences, when you look at some of those studies, as working with kids, as frustrated as I can get with adults sometimes, their parents or their caregivers, I also know that a lot of them have, they didn't have the best of childhood themselves, and so they are just doing what they learned from a young age themselves. And so it's kind of for us to try to break that cycle, and through a multifaceted approach where it's just like, we're not going to just simply say one program fits everything. We're going to take that child and look at case management to say, what, with that child or children in that family and that family dynamics, how can we impact change?
Awesome. Thank you.
Councilman Thompson.
When will you know if you have obtained the grant?
They gave me a timeline. Well, July 1st will be the start date, so submitted March 1st. I would say by the 1st of May. They really had a quick turnaround, mainly because I think these were our funds over time, so we're wanting to get it. The state has $5 million to distribute, and we also, in there, if we're reduced, we'll still take funding. So it wasn't an all or nothing for us at the state.
Councilman Thies.
I heard you say the word wraparound, and that's, I think, something we had conversed with, too. Is this, as far as partnerships, obviously there's a lot of different stakeholders when you're talking about children and family. Have you reached out to the school corporation? Are they going to be okay with a social worker coming in and collaborating services? Because from what it sounds like it's going to be a facilitator, really, for that family with services.
We have an initial, but not in the schools. Unless.
But it's more like just to get information and
Get
things.
information, and working with the schools to find out how are they doing. Unless the child has an issue where they need to go to the school, but we will work with her.
That's what I was just going to say.
She works a lot with our drug-free communities fund, grant work here as well. This will take it's one agency can't find help. You're absolutely right. We're looking at working with the school corporation, working with local council, working with just a whole host of organizations.
Just to give you an example, we've already started discussions with FSA Counseling, ISU, Purdue University, Choices Consulting, the Hope House, Family Solutions, Children's Bureau. Yeah, there's a few others in there.
Well,
I think
and
Next Steps.
And that's what, the other question I have, since, you know, with the courts, I mean, are we talking certain ages, or is it birth to 18? I mean, just the whole family?
5 to 17.
Yeah, just where you
probably with
can- yeah.
this. And depending on the types of programming, like Strengthening Families Program, for example, that's just one of many ideas that we utilize. That's a 10 to 14. At prime age,
They're developing.
10 to 14 years old, so better 10 to 14 years old, that's the prime age of everything.
Well, I just having, you know, working with young people, I think, having like just something that pulls all the resources together, and I think it's a good idea, so. How many numbers of families, I mean, just to give us some data, go through your courts, I mean, just so we have,
It varies, and it's hard to, you know, in a given year, I think we got anywhere, you know, 150, you know, that, with children.
with children, and then you add the children and.
That's in a given, but that's just filings. These cases stay open, you know, they close, they open until these children are 18. So it fluctuates, and right now with COVID, it seems like everything is reopening because people have their disputes.
Right.
So it might be, you know, 150 cases are filed, but from years prior, those cases are getting open again as people are battling and having disputes. So that's why that volume is much higher now.
Thank you for all you guys did.
Do you guys have any questions? I brought these lawyers in to be like the cheerleaders.
I'm good, I might catch up with Blake afterwards.
Councilman Wager?
I do want to say to the two of you that, you know, I know the efforts that you both have put in the past. And Judge Reddy, I talk to sometimes at the end of the day when she's been through hopeless situations, and I just knew you would come up with something to do about those kids. I knew you would, and I commend you both for this. And you're not just optimistic, you're determined, and I know you'll do it. You know, I just have all the hope in the world that this is going to change our community. I really do. Good job.
Any other questions or comments from council? Thank you. Now I have additional appropriation 2022-04, ROC 2022-05, clerk. Along with that would be the salary ordinance 2022-01, ROC 2022-05.
Good evening. Leanna Moore, Chief Deputy Clerk.
Brett Newman, clerk.
We are asking to take 4 of our part-time positions and turn them into 2 full-time positions. We have found it very, very difficult to fill part-time positions, given the fact that in our office, part-time positions is not seasonal, like working for the Parks Department or maybe in another area. Our part-time people work 4 days a week, 7 hours a day, sitting next to someone that works 5 days a week. The part-time person makes $12.85 an hour. The full-time person makes $18.09 an hour. The difference in their job is zero, absolutely nothing. They have to do exactly the same thing that any other deputy clerk has to do. The pool of people that we are trying to hire from is getting smaller and smaller. People will not work for $12.85 an hour anymore, regardless of the amount of hours they work. We have had much difficulty. We've had interview after interview. We've hired people that don't show up. We're finding that with offering full-time, they're more apt, and we're liable to get better applicants, because they are going to get a benefit package as well. I have broken down the salary for part-time versus full-time. It will cost the county a little bit more money, obviously, because of the benefits, but it's not really that much. If we're giving up four part-time for 2 full-time. Bradley? Same thing.
We've discussed this before, the pay is just, for part-time doesn't meet the standard, and we're getting, the quality of the applicant is so poor that it's not even worth having at this point. We're fishing at the bottom of the barrel when we're trying to fill some of these positions at the rate we're at. 2 full-time positions would bring better quality as well, more stabilization into the clerk's office, because we're a revolving door right now when it comes to that.
Any questions from council? Councilman Thacker?
Yeah. Hey, I just wanted to get a kind of a feedback. You put, I appreciate what you've got here. How many current full-time are in the clerks?
We currently have, 32 full-time?
32.
And part-time?
And we have 8 part-time.
And what do you see, if any, impact if this is, if this does go through and you have those 4 positions that you're not filling because nobody's put in for them? What's it going to do with the 8 part-time people that are currently there? Is it going to add some additional discontent with those 4, or are they part-time because they want to be part-time? Some people do, have a limit. I just was curious.
2 things. Prior to you being on the council, we came in and we asked for 4 full-time people back when I first got elected. Instead, we were given 8 part-time people, but we had the benefit of e-file coming in that was going to take a lot of the burden off of us. So there's a history to this. In doing so, we hired the 8 part-time people. I'm going to get to the answer to your question, but there's some things here you need to know. What we found was that worked, and e-file definitely lowered the caseload. E-file made everything more convenient for the clerks, and I thought we were moving in the right direction where we could actually eliminate some of this. And then came COVID, and the pay discrepancy has went off the charts, guys. It's just one of those things. We'll still have some part-time people. I'll speak to one of the part-time individuals, a college student. We can work around their schedule. It kind of accommodates them. They help us. But we hire all of our full-time people from the part-time pool, or we have. So as you can see, it's a stepping stone type process. The answer to your question is, will we still have work for the part-time people? Absolutely. We've got elections the next 3 years, so there's plenty of stuff to be done.
Thank you.
Any additional comments or questions from council? Looks like you're clean.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Next up, additional appropriation 2022-06, ROC 2022-07, and Sally Ordinance 2022-02, ROC 2022-07, juvenile courts.
Good evening, honored council. Glenna Cheeseman, Director of Vigo County CASA.
No. Okay, I'm sorry. You're good.
I
I
think
lost
I
my
have a
page here. I'm
couple
sorry. I
of them.
apologize.
I think I'm a couple of them, aren't I, down there?
Yes, yes.
There's several that are me.
I apologize, yes. I lost my page.
I'm juvenile court and the guardian ad litem as well.
Yes. You're good. No, go ahead.
Okay. I am before you this evening because earlier, as a matter of fact, less than 3 weeks ago, we received notification from the Indiana Criminal Justice Institute, which is a huge proponent in our funding for our program for CASA, that there will be a 20 to 25% cut into our funding that we will be applying for. We have to apply for by April 1st. This is a $64,000 cut to our current grant that we're asking for. This current grant that we have also doesn't include the pay increases that we need to have to make our positions compensation accordingly. As many before you this evening have said, the compensation for pay and covering positions is really hard right now, really difficult. So we are not oblivious to that as well. We have difficulty in hiring as well with our program. What we are needing to do and what I propose to the council is that we would like to ask the county to absorb two full-time positions, one that is currently under VOCA, and then we would like to convert one of our part-time positions that is currently under our GAL from the state CASA program as a full-time position. This would reduce our current request to VOCA by over 64%. That is a large amount. VOCA funding comes for 2 years. This would take that amount off of there because we have to show sustainability or to even be considered for our VOCA funding this year. By incorporating these two positions to the full-time, we already have people in these positions, so it would be a transition from their current position into those. The part-time position that we're asking to be made full-time, we already have a person in that position. It would open up funding in our GAL currently to pull off another position from the VOCA funding. It's kind of confusing. You almost have to draw a chart to figure out where everything's going. But it will allow us to do sustainability and still allow access for us to have funding under VOCA. I wanted to give you guys some statistics as to showing that our matrix of our program can show you what we're doing. When I stepped before this council in June of 2017, I made a promise to this council when I first became director May 1st that I would eliminate the wait list. That was our big thing, because at that time there was over 300 children on the wait list. There has been a wait list on the Vigo County CASA program. Under this program for 35 years, there has always been a wait list. March 2nd of last year, we were able to eliminate that wait list. March 1st of last year, we had 188 children on that wait list. By going through and applying and working with our triage program, implementing new projects into our program, we were able to eliminate that. We did not go to media, we did not put it in the papers, we did not yell it from the tallest bell towers, because we know one loss of position or one person quitting, we go back onto the wait list. So we have maintained that wait list for an entire year. And in the process of even with COVID and everything that has gone on, when I started the program, we had over 70 volunteers. When the onset of COVID started in 2019, we had over 60 volunteers. To date, we have 43. We physically lost 6 volunteers in the matter of 2 weeks last year to COVID. They passed away. It has been detrimental to our program. So to maintain that wait list, our wait list has had to fall to our staff members, because we are under a pilot program that says for us to receive those fundings, we must maintain a 0 wait list. And we have done that by applying different levels of advocacy in our program, doing pilots, triage into our program, and making our program. We have grown from 10 staff members to 20 staff members. 75% of our staff are all grant-funded positions, and they are all part-time. We are asking the county to give us these 2 full-time positions to help make our sustainability in our program. We finished the year last year, and every year since I have become a director, at record levels. Since my day one of taking of directorship to now, we have increased our program size by 24%. That's children that we've covered. We finished the year last year at 1,365. We are already projected to pass that number this year. Our current number as of today, we already have 594 children in our program. We already have closed out 66 successfully. This is 66 children that have reunified with their homes. For the year, we're already at 660. We were at 1,365 at the end of the year at December 31st. So we're already almost half of where we were at last year, and we got a long road ahead of us. Our current volunteer hours, we've already given 2,018 hours this year. Current miles traveled, 3,600 miles. Current number of contacts that our volunteers have made in our program is over 6,100, and we're just now in March. Our breakdowns, we've had 512 CHINS cases, 63 termination cases. We've got juvenile, paternity, delinquent, and guardianship cases that we are now covering. That has never been covered in our program before. Our longest volunteer that we have with us is 15 years. 47% of our volunteers have been with us for 5 years or plus. Our median age of our volunteers is 60 years or older. 77% of our volunteers are female. 65% of our volunteers have a bachelor's degree or higher. Our volunteers are very well-trained individuals. And the other unique is about our volunteers is that not only are they volunteering of their time of those 2,000 hours they've already give, but 48% of our volunteers work full-time or part-time. So not only are they doing their jobs, but they're taking care of the children in our community. Cases covered by our volunteers as of today are 51. They cover 127 children in our program. Our staff covers 467 children. That's 11 staff members that have a full caseload. They average 25 to 31 cases. That's not children, that's caseload. Each staff member is to see their children every 30 days. Our FRC full-time position that we're asking the county to absorb into a full-time position out of our VOCA sees their children every week. They go to court, they do everything, so theirs is intensive. So it's extremely important. And I give you these numbers because we have matrix and data to show you what we're doing. You know, the cost of our 2 full-time positions is approximately $127,000. But I can tell you and I can equate all of our hours that we have given to the program that has been donated over the last 5 years, that if you take that by the full-time positions that I'm asking, the hourly rate, that you would have had to have hired 19 full-time staff members to cover all the hours that our volunteers did. That cost to the county, if you would have had to have hired those people over the last 5 years, would have been $1.1 million. All we are asking of the county is to give us 8% of that paid forward to our program. That's all we're asking. We know requesting 2 full-time positions for the same time is over $597,000. That's what that would have been if we would have had these 2 positions 5 years ago. But again, our volunteers have given and given and given of our program, and we have built our program so large that we're outgrowing our space. If you've ever stopped by our offices, you can see that we're very, very creative with our bookcases of providing staff. When they know that there's 20 people in the room that we're at, they were like, how do you fit them all in there? Well, we're creative. We really like each other. So my proposal to the council is for you, this grant expires September 31st. We are asking the county for you to pick up those 2 full-time positions starting October 1st and then carrying them through. But I'm also offering you an alternative. We have excess funds that from the previous administration was not spent. Working with the auditor's office, we found these funds sitting there. They were excess funds that had been left and rolled over into a cash line item for the CASA program. What we would like to also offer you as an alternative proposal is we will pull those 2 positions full-time and we'll fund them with our excess funds that we have sitting there. And the auditor's office has confirmed we have the money sitting there for us to continue making these positions full-time starting October 1st, and we will cover them from October 1st until December 31st, with the council picking it up and making it a full-time position January 1 of 2023. We'll cover the cost on the onset, and then the county can pick it up. So that way it's not even in your budget this year. It would be next year's budget. That's our alternative proposal because we have this fund sitting there. We don't want this excess fund sitting there. I have a letter that I received from the state CASA office from the Indiana Supreme Court that I was not able to get before you, but it's from the state office saying that I spend my money very carefully, that every decision that I make is solely for the purpose of our program. I don't make expenses. I don't spend money willy-nilly. You know, some people think, oh, I got $130,000. I'm going to buy this. I don't. I look for longevity. I look for my staffing. I take care of my staffing because I know that if we don't have those, we don't have the people to go out and take care of the children in our program. Yeah, I can go out and spend $30,000 on awareness. I can go out and have a really flashy event. But if I don't have the people to take care of the children of our program, those things they're useless. They're worthless. It's just money that's spent. If I don't have the people to train the volunteers I'm trying to bring in, then I'm not spending my money wisely. And I have a letter from the state, and I can provide you with a copy of it telling you that I do. I spend my money effectively and efficiently, and I look longevity-wise. In my proposal, I showed you how much money that I have been able to bring into the program since my onset of becoming the director from VOCA funding from GAL funding, from capacity building funding, from all the grants that I bring into the county. The county does provide for us 6 full-time positions. That is myself and 5 other supervisorial positions. But in that they provide, I bring in over to the county, sorry, lost my place. I have it, I just lost it. It is on, I apologize. It's in my supplementive questions, I think, is where it's at, to tell you how much funding has been brought into the county. That's what I get for dropping my paper in the back. Let's see. I apologize, I can't seem to find it. I know it's there, but through the VOCA grant and through the GAL, we have brought a considerable amount of funding to the county that was never, it isn't a cost to the county. I do matching with our volunteer hours. Even my matches for my grants, we use the volunteer hours at the going rate of a staff member. So VOCA grant, they do our match hours through that. So it's over 30-some thousand in grants that, matching funds that they take into consideration for our volunteer hours. So even our volunteer hours, not only are they giving to the children, but they're also giving to our grant capability as well. So that is matching funds that the county doesn't have to provide because our volunteers are providing it through the services that they provide. If you were to take all of the hours that, that the cost is due and base that on the indigent level of $100 an hour, in over the 5 years, that would have been a savings to the county of $6.6 million. That's what it would have cost if the county had to pay for an attorney to do the exact same work that we did. So at this time, I ask that you consider us to take these 2 positions, and I know it's confusing, but our VOCA funding, we have to have our grant in by April 1st. They will be making the announcements sometime later in June, July for the grant to go into effect. We have to show that we have this grant cut. We've got to figure out what we're going to do with these positions, and our best alternative right now, we have a huge community support, and in my proposal, I provided you with letters of support from our community in backing us in this and the importance of the work that we do. And we are asking you to provide these 2 positions. I won't ask for anything for quite a while, and I'm true to my word. I told you, and when I came before you before, when I asked, that I wouldn't ask for another couple of years, and here we are. And I promise you I won't ask again, because we will make do with what we have. We're creative. I am humbled by the staff that I get to work with every day. They bless me, and I'm very thankful. I'm thankful for the community support that we have. We're not flashy, by no means. You know we're here, but we are here for the children. And I always have to ask myself, and I said it in my closing statement, and I mean it. We always have to ask the work that we do is not the work we do because it's a want. We do it because it's the right thing to do. The children are our future of our community. We have to ask ourselves what we're willing to sacrifice. The people that I have on my staff, they do this work because it's what's right. It's not about the pay. It's not about the hours. It's making sure that we're taking care of the children in our community. And we proudly can say that we took care of 1,365 children last year, and we're already starting that this year. Today we had a full day in court. We have some wins, we have some losses. It's been a proven fact that when a CASA is assigned to a case, on a DCS case or a CHINS case or anything, they close out quicker, and they close out without repetitive returning back to those cases, because we're there to make sure that we're having the eyes on the children and the best interest is there. So I ask you to consider this, because this isn't just about full-time positions. It isn't just about staffing. It's about children's lives. If we lose any position currently right now with our program, it will be so devastating. We will go back to a wait list. We will lose our pilot funding, which will be 2 more positions that we will lose. We will lose our capacity building funding, which will be 2 more positions. So it's not just about the 2 positions. It's about the 6 that we potentially could lose if we don't find something with these fundings of these full-time positions. Now that I was long-winded, I'm sorry.
Questions from council? Yeah, you would, Maria.
You can count on me.
Councilman Fees.
I ask them all for you all. So I understand a little bit about CASA, but I guess in hearing what was brought to us too by the social work with Judge Reddy and so on, can you explain, I mean, is that something that could eventually collaborate together? Because really, from what I understand, you work more with, like, as an advocate for the children in the court system. Is there any kind of beyond?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
We currently work in the juvenile system, but the reason why I gave you the breakdown of the cases like guardianships, divorce, juvenile cases, some of those cases are in that court. We have been asked to be on special cases, special appointments for divorce cases, paternity cases. So those are some things that we can work together. We work in family recovery court, which is the full-time position under VOCA. That is where that's at. We are required to have a full-time staff member or a dedicated staff CASA to that program. If we lose this position, we lose that portion, that requirement. So that means we would have to put that work on two staff members, because one part-time staff member could not control that, because they have to see those children every week, go to court every week, testify, roundtables. There's a lot of things to do. So there are crossovers in that court that we would work with other courts as well. We do work in juvenile, but there are other cases that we work in, and it's growing and growing in how we are. When I first started, we just did juvenile cases, which is juvenile CHINS cases, child in need of services, and TPR. We are now doing guardianships, paternity cases, divorce cases, all of those cases in our program. So, I mean, yes, it is actually it's growing.
Beyond. Okay. Thank you. Thank you for all you're doing, and the volunteers too. I know, just
We're working to
having
bring more
been
in.
worked with CASA as a school person, it's a big deal.
Councilman Thacker?
Yeah, I guess my question would be is, and you talked about an alternative there with the funding and using some of yours. So the timing that you're coming to us now for an appropriation now, it's pivotal because of the grant writing that you have to do?
Yes.
I just want to make sure I understand, because if it looks like one of the options being it wouldn't impact this year's budget, but it would give us time to impact the 2023 budget, if I understood that.
Correct.
All right.
So we have to have our VOCA grant submitted by April 1st.
Okay.
By that time, if we go in and we ask for the full grant, there's a great, I mean, like 95% chance we're not going to get it, and then there is no potential for funding whatsoever.
Is it an all or none type
It's
of
an all
grant?
or none.
Okay, and that's what I was just trying to
Yep.
understand where, so I
This
just wanted to
wouldn't
make sure
take
I
effect.
put it together, because if we can do something now, but it not have to impact the budget till 23, but it also ensures your success that you keep the 6 instead of just losing 2.
What we would do is this would go into effect October 1st.
Right.
This appropriation and this ordinance, and it would come into October 1st. And my alternative would be to take my excess funds that I have currently sitting in my line item. I'd have to come back for an appropriation, to have those funds appropriated to our payroll salary with the benefits and everything calculated at the right pay, at the right job distinction. We would have to do that. When I filed this, I did it very quickly, so it may not have been the right determination of the job, so that would have to be worked out. But it would take for place October 1st. That's why the alternative proposal, it would be great if the county would say, yes, we'll do it this for October 1st, and then that's great. But my alternative is I do have this money sitting there that needs to be spent. It needs to be spent down. So to do that, I'm willing to cover the cost for this year, so it doesn't impact the county's budget this year, but let the county work it into the budget next year, saying that January 1st, these 2 positions will then be absorbed into it, and then there's been no cost to the county this year. I would take care of that cost.
And that's what I just wanted to make sure I was clear on it. Thank you.
Excuse me. One of the things that I was thinking about, because this does not have to be appropriated in this year, we have issues with classifications, salary amounts, so that would affect the salary ordinance, that if maybe we could do a resolution, if you guys are in support of this, if the council's in support of doing it, you could adopt a resolution so that she would have something for her grant. Would that be something?
We could show sustainability that the county is going to pick it up in 2023 and not this year, then we would cover the cost this year, and then it would take effect next year as the county's.
But I'm assuming you need something for your grant that states that
We have to show that we have to show a reduction in our grant, and we have to show where those positions are gonna go. So then we would be able to show them not only have we met our grant goals by eliminating the wait list, that we have also we have obtained sustainability for these two positions because the county is now going to take them because we have met our goals. And that would be, that's huge, that's really huge. For us to get any further funding, is to showing that we've made that.
Do you feel resolution would be a strong enough commitment for grant purposes?
I think it would, because as long as I can show that we've got it taken care of, and that even though it's not something that's like right now, but it is going to happen, I think it will be beneficial for us. Like I said, I can cover it for this year, but next year I won't have the money because all my excess funds will be gone.
Sure.
Because as of now, we have nothing for a salary ordinance. We don't have anything for an additional appropriation ordinance for the fund, wherever these excess funds are at. So there's really nothing that you can do at this point that would get her to where she needs, other than possibly a resolution, and then come back in August, September to get you started for October 1.
We would have to come in and do the appropriations over into
The
that line item.
appropriation and a salary ordinance. But that would at least get her through to April 1 if that's something the council's in support of.
I mean, I guess that's something we need to discuss, if we have an appetite for that, to draft resolution of support. That way we can have it available for next meeting. to act on. I think that's a discussion.
Looking for a motion? Or-
Well, I don't think we
Yeah.
have motion necessarily, but I think just kind of see where we're at and then see if there's, if there's any value in drafting a resolution. If the council doesn't favor that approach, I guess it's best to know that now than to.
That's why I asked the question. I thought that it shows that the department's willing to put that effort forward, and she's making the reductions and showing this for the grant, and if we could be supportive of that, and it saves two positions by creating two full-times, it's saving four more with the grant process. I personally have appetite for it, and I appreciate you asking, because I think, I didn't know the technicalities of it, what we could do now, but if we don't have to impact this budget, 2022 budget, I think then that allows the people that's on the budget committee to at least have some options to do what they want to for 2023, is what I was hoping. Yeah, so I'm in favor of that.
I'm in favor of it. It's a very reasonable solution.
Do you feel comfortable with that, Glenna? If we were to put a resolution together and act on that next week, would that be sufficient for your purposes? If there's a different approach, I guess now's the.
I'm not sure
Okay.
at this point. I know what opportunities I have. I don't know all of the processes, so I'm not going to stand here and say that I do know them. I just know
Right.
what I need for my grant.
I think we just want to make, I think it's apparent the council supports what you're trying to accomplish here. I just want to make sure the next steps are appropriate to help you out.
Basically, what it will be is my next steps after next Tuesday, because I know that you need to vote on it, and I will be here next Tuesday for any further questions that you need. I then have to start working my grant. I have my grant person here with me today because we've already started the process, but we don't know the figures that we can put in. So if the council is going to tell us, then yes, we'll do your alternative proposal, and then we'll pick it up in 2023. Then we can start writing the grant for just the two part-time positions right now. That's all we'll have to ask for, because then we know going forward we will have it covered. But our problem is we've got to have that assurity knowing that it's going to be covered, because if it's not covered, then at the end of the year and then it doesn't get picked up, then we're done. And there's no way to go back before BOCA and try to, or anyone else, because I even put it in my supplemental questions. And I know it would be something that somebody would probably ask, because they asked me this question before. Well, can't you go to the state CASA organization and ask them for more fundings? No, because the way the funding comes from the state CASA office is that it's divided among the 82 counties, and it comes from the legislative body. Then they break that out upon your compliancy, your caseloads, how many children you serve. So those are already prefigured, so it's not like I can go back to them and say, hey, by the way, I lost these 2 positions, can you give me more money for it? That's not how that works. All the extra funding that comes in through capacity or triage, those are all grants that they give for specific projects. The way our organization is now developed and how it has grown is that we have other positions that are covered by capacity grants. We have pilot grants, we have all of those things, but they're all interlocking. So if we lose one, then we lose that funding for that one because now we're not meeting the grant criteria for those grants. So that's why these are so crucial. If we lose these 2, we lose more than just 2. If we can take these 2, then we're gonna save a lot of people and we're gonna save our program because we are working at bare minimal. I mean, we really, really are. And one hiccup in the road, we go right back on the wait list. We lose funding. It's just this domino effect of how things happen. And I wish there was more funding out there. And I've been asked too, can you apply for other grants? Here's that little kink in the chain. We can't because we're a court program. So if we had a 501c or had a board, we could go apply for Lilly grants. We could go apply for those things. But because we're not those things, it completely takes us out of it. We can apply for small grants, like an event grant or something for our Whoville or a pilot thing to kick off something, a volunteer appreciation, because those are one-time things. They're not to sustainability. There are CIP grants, court improvement grants that you can apply for, but those are step-down grants, which means that they'll give you everything at first, and then the next time they cut it by 30%, then they cut it by 50%, then they cut it by 75%. So you're right back in that thing of trying to find sustainability. That's why we can't apply for those grants. They just won't work for our program. Other programs can, but we don't have that availability because we don't have upfront matching funds either. Our matching funds comes by what our volunteers provide to our program. That's what we use. We don't actually have free money sitting there. We do have excess funds sitting in there, but they are to be operational. There are funds for operational programming, meaning that they are to be used for staffing. They are to be used for the administrative costs of the program. We just can't be out there using them for anything we want to.
Just a point of clarification.
Councilman Wilson?
Okay, what I'm understanding, if we were to decide that we want to take this alternative request, that's what would require the resolution? Or can we just next week just vote on that? I guess I'm not understanding where the resolution comes in, for sure.
Yes.
Right? Is that right?
Yes.
Okay, I am understanding it then, okay. Okay, thank you.
Any other questions or comments, council? Thank you. It's very thorough, very
Sorry.
informative. No, good job.
Yeah.
No, appreciate it, really do. Spent a lot of
Thank you.
time on this. Just so everybody's clear, that also covers the next 2, the additional appropriation 2022-07, ROC 2022-08, and salary ordinance 2022-03, ROC 2022-08, both GAL. Just so everybody's clear on that. Next up, we have additional appropriation 2022-08, ROC 2022-09, jail. And then salary ordinances 2022-04 through 2022-10, all which are ROC 2022-09 jail. These are for add officers and men salaries, stipends, shift differentials, add position stipend, and amend part-time correctional officer rates. So those are all tied together.
Members of council, Sheriff John Plassey. You should have a copy of what we responded to the council's questions. I'd be happy to answer any of those that weren't clear.
Any questions from council? Councilman Thacker?
I guess my only question is, if we are in agreement with these proposals, then we will be in good standings with the federal judge.
I mean, I honestly, I can't speak for her. I don't know what she would accept and what she won't accept.
Okay. That's, I got from the conference with her, that's our goal, that we need to make sure that we're in compliance with the federal judge.
I mean, we need to make her, I don't want to say happy, but satisfied we're doing what we can to help get new staff in the jail.
Thank you. Yeah. Would the council be able to give us his opinion on that? Well, if he's got you here and he's paying for you, I just assume we get an answer out of you.
To answer your question, Councilman Thacker, we're currently in a limit on the number of inmates we're supposed to have in the jail. There is a relationship between the number of inmates that can be appropriately supervised and the number of jail employees. Obviously, the capacity of the jail, the new jail, will increase, and we have a projection that we'll need a larger staff to do that. And yet today, we're supposed to have 68, and our current count is 40. So we, to get to practically double the current staff, I think the judge is looking for some effort on the part of the county to fill those spots. Now, as I think the sheriff alluded in his response to the council, it can be more than just salary. I mean, there are parts of this proposal that will increase the salary of current employees, attempt to retain them, to make the position more attractive. One presumes that moving into a better work climate, which I trust the new jail will be. I've been there once. I've been in the old jail too, and I gotta believe it's going to be better. Even if you're dealing with the same clientele, more space, different environment, things should improve. So there's kind of a multifaceted aspect here to keeping the judge happy. What makes the judge happy is when we can attract and retain a full staff to supervise a jail that's operating at 80% of capacity, which is considered full size under our guidelines in Indiana.
Any other questions from council? Councilman Thompson?
Sheriff?
Yes.
We've talked about this before. Has there been anything else done about changing the schedule, or is that possible? You guys work 5 and 2 now, correct?
Correct.
Is it possible to work, I know there was some discussion, I think, in here about possibly 12-hour shifts, or maybe a 4 and 2. Has there been any leeway on that, or anything gained from those discussions with your employees?
With the current staffing we have, it's not feasible for those different changes to work.
For either one, 4 and 2?
4 and 2
or-
is you're having employees work less time instead of the 5 and 2, so you're getting employees there less during the week, so that impacts your staffing numbers. The 12-hour shifts with 40 staff, we've got 10 on a group, so I can kind of tell you that.
Okay. Do you guys have a minimum number that you have working, I assume? Any shift?
7.
7.
But we did do a recent employee survey and asked them if they're in favor of 12-hour shifts, and they are. The majority were. And a lot of them now are being mandated to work 16 hours, so it obviously it'd be less work for them and better for them, but with the staffing levels, with people being off, we just can't make that work at this point.
Councilman Wager?
Sheriff, when they leave, where do they primarily go for their job?
I know it's referenced in here. From 2019 to 2021, we had 12 leave for the federal prison. 5 went to Terrell Police Department, 10 went to other agencies, 11 were internal transfers, 20 were involuntary terminations.
I read that, is that still holding true?
Well, we had additional 4 leave. One recently was for drug use while on duty.
That's illegal? Oh, just a
Apparently,
joke.
he didn't think so.
Are you getting applicants?
We are, but it just seems like we're losing faster than we can get new ones coming in. And unfortunately, it's not unique to this jail. I was at the sheriff's conference last week, and many jails in Indiana are like that. And, you know, nationwide, many employers can't get employees, even here locally. It's just a lot of different factors.
So with the prospect of 12-hour shifts or maybe a 4 and 2 schedule, do you know what the manpower requirements would be for each? We're at 40 now. I think you said you have, with the 12-hour shifts, were you talking groups of 10? Is that what you're talking?
We have 4 different groups, an A and a B shift, night shift and a day shift. So right now at 40, that would be 10 per group. That would be working. I know you have done some calculations on that, Charlie. Oh.
Okay, is this better? We have some people that are just do like Monday through Friday administrative stuff, so that comes out of that. So it's actually, right now, what we would have is about 9 people, and I think one group would have maybe 8. So when Bill Wilson did that study, the staffing analysis, I asked him about a 4 and 2 because they work less, and he said it would actually take about 5 more people. So we weren't going to ask for that for the jail setting, because it's obviously a different setting than like a road would be.
Did he say what's optimal? What length of shift? Is it 10 or 12 or 8?
No.
I mean,
He said that everybody does different. When he was in Monroe County, he said they worked 6 and 3. So anyway, that was what they had done. But for whatever reason, yeah, it was 8-hour shifts. But for whatever reason, that 6 days in a row, everybody gets a little.
it's a lot.
Yeah. So.
But we don't have a magic number of what it would take to run the 12s.
No, I mean, I can probably punch the numbers and get you guys that if that's what you want. So, I think we could do that. As you guys know, the biggest variable is, what we're going to do with courts, that staff, and then the other big thing is if we have people that go to the hospital, that kind of throws a wrench in a lot of our stuff.
Any other questions or comments from council?
Thank you.
Just real quick, I just thought of one. If, with that, you referred to the Wilson study, and I know that's, the judge has seen that as well. As my only concern is if we, and I think 12 hours is an optional shift, is a possibility, but if we don't have a study on it and we make a decision based on that, I don't know where that puts us. If it leaves us vulnerable, that we approve something without having a study. That was my only concern. Is I hadn't heard of, thought of the 12 hours until tonight. Which it's a viable option. I agree, but I just didn't know if we had to, in order for us to move forward, if we have to base it off of a study as a government entity. That's just a question. I don't know.
I don't know, I would think that that would be an option available to the department head or elected official, I would assume, especially in public safety setting. I would think I think they would have to determine how they would come to the agreement amongst the employees, but I don't think there's any guidelines for us as a council, unless I'm missing something, Mr. Effner.
I have no problem asking him. I know like everything he does is, he's got some formula of numbers, because I've called him before about different things, and he gets me something within like 10 or 15 minutes. So, I mean, I can ask him, hey, you know, what do you think an optimal number would be, and then what does it do to our overall number, so.
Any other questions or comments from council? Thank you.
Thanks.
And those were the final items. So with that, I would entertain a motion to adjourn.
Stand back.
Second.
Motion on the floor by Councilwoman Wilson, second by Councilman Norris. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Meeting adjourned.